So, hi all. This session was something that Amma so graciously agreed to let me do. So, thank you so much for attending. I am a senior product manager at Salesforce. I work on the offer management team within CSG, and we focus specifically on success plans. So, standard, premier, and signature. Some of you who have been in the ecosystem for a while or have been at a customer with a success plan are probably familiar with those. But if you are not, they are our tiered support plans. So right now we're looking to get a focus on adoption for our products. And the reason why I wanted all of you to join today is because I come from a background where I started as an IT business analyst and I pivoted to an admin. So I started my Salesforce career as an admin. And then I pivoted to consulting, where I did consulting for about 10 years. I joke a lot that I've been in the ecosystem since I was 5, but that's probably not true. It's been about 15 years, but it sure feels, I feel Joe's pain that I've been doing this for a really long time. And then I pivoted to customer success, where I work for 2 different ISVs, and then into product management. So I've done a lot of pivoting. Allison, if you want to reach out on LinkedIn, I'm more than happy to give you some advice there. I do a lot of mentoring on how to pivot your career in the ecosystem. But I'm really here today, again, to kind of grab some feedback from you guys, knowing that our admins and our analysts and our architects, right, they're the heart of our system, right? Your job is to really understand the system, understand your users, understand your business use cases, and put all of that together. So hearing it, like, as they say, from the horse's mouth, for me is super important to understand how you all view adoption. And maybe Talia, you could bring up that slide. I'll just quickly run through the content we're looking to cover, and then Talia can do her intro for Miro and how we want to use that today. Awesome, thank you so much. So what we were talking about earlier, how do you guys define adoption, right? What does that mean to you? It means something different for everybody, depending on the customer outcomes that they're looking for. So I'm really curious to see what feedback we get there. Who helps drive adoption, right? We know that behavior drives adoption. So which user personas, right? Is it an admin? Is it an analyst? Is it the user? Is it all of the above? Is it different depending on where you are in your life cycle, right? Who helps drive adoption? What are some of the adoption challenges you've faced? Again, this is specific to Sales and Service Cloud. Those are the 2 products that I support. So if you've you've implemented or are currently working on enhancements for Sales or Service Cloud, what are some of the adoption challenges you've faced? And lastly, how can we help you all, right? How can we better support you all through these challenges, right? Are there things we're doing well? If you've used our success plans, right? If you've used our support, are there things that we really have some room for improvement on, right? Room for growth in some areas? Totally open to transparent feedback. I don't own any of these features, so none of it, criticisms are okay. I will take none of it personally, but I'm really looking for a transparent, open, and honest feedback from you guys. So Talia, you want to go ahead and talk some Miro?
Yeah, so everyone, please try to go to the link in the chat and let me know. This was an idea I had like 30 minutes ago to do this, realizing that this might be the best way to gather people's feedback. I've used Miro before, but didn't get to test everything as I'd usually like to. So if I can see if anyone else has joined the board. I can see Gary's there. And yep, okay, got some people going here. So what I'm going to do now is just introduce you to Miro. You're going to have the tools are on the left, and you can use the sticky note tool to grab a sticky note, whatever color you want, and then you're going to place it down and then type your message into it. I'll show you in just a second what that message, there's different categories of things that you can do. Below, don't start doing the sticky notes just yet. And you can do Command Z to undo if you did something you didn't want to do. And so I'm just going to read through the instructions right now, and then we can get started. I will reveal the area where you can put your sticky notes. One, we're going to grab the virtual sticky notes, and then we're going to place them on the colored boxes that correspond to your contribution type. You'll see that at the bottom. And we're going to do one idea per sticky note. Don't try to write a novel on a little sticky note. The text just gets super tiny, and then we can't divide things up. So then you're going to include your name and the company at the bottom of your sticky notes, please. That would be nice for them to be able to kind of track where this feedback is coming from. And then we're going to spend a few minutes, so we'll be spending a few minutes creating these together silently. And then we're going to vote on them after a number of them have been put on the board, and we can see where people want to focus, because we only have a short amount of time. And then the rest of the stickies will be taken back to Crystal's team, and they will do what they do with feedback. So here's the board we have right now, there's 4 different quadrants, and we can put notes about what is working well, what is not working well, what questions do you have, and what ideas can you suggest. Don't worry about the voting dots just yet. That's for after we have something on the board. So I'm imagining the people who have not used these clouds will not have much to say, but I'm hoping we have some people who've got maybe, some gripes, why does it take so long? Or why are the defaults this way? Or, and why are people not adopting the software, and what can I do to make that better? Or I have some ideas. So I'm going to stop talking and put a timer for about, I don't see anyone putting anything the board yet. Is anyone having any trouble putting anything on board? I've not seen a single sticky note created by anyone yet.
And
Does that mean that you're lost?
I'm just going to expand a little bit, Talia. If you have not worked specifically with Sales or Service Cloud, we do understand that a lot of our adoption challenges our customers face are product agnostic. So some of them span all of our products, right? And don't really, aren't really bound to a specific product. So we're open to that feedback as well. Maybe just, make a notation that it's not specific to Sales or Service Cloud.
Yeah.
I don't want to turn down.
And we remember, yeah. And we can remember that, the software itself is one thing, but what goes on in your organization that can contribute to adoption is also helps. And that may be something that Salesforce can help with as well, giving resources for those kinds of things, or education on how to help with adoption. But I saw someone attempt a sticky note. Can someone tell me can someone make a sticky note and write something on it just so I can relax? There we go. Okay.
I tried it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna just try 5 minutes right now and see if we can come up with things. What I encourage people to do is to not feel really restricted. It may seem like a half-baked idea but just get something down. Well, you can kind of revise it, but those few ideas you might have, them down quickly so that we can assess whether or not we want to focus on that, and we can refine the next part of this. So here's the 5 minutes.
And I think everybody can provide feedback on what their definition of adoption is, right? Salesforce adoption.
Yes.
As a platform.
Yes.
So I think regardless of the products you've worked with, I think we can all provide what our opinion of that definition is.
Yes. So Crystal, would you like them to answer these questions in specific place?
They can use those for guide. Yeah, if they want to use that for a guide just to stay on topic, we could totally do that. Make sure that if it helps people stay focused.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like we don't have a specific place that makes sense for would you define adoption? So maybe I make another place for that. Sorry, I haven't locked that rectangle yet, so somebody moved it accidentally. So you can reduce the size of sticky notes like this, so that they fit better, um, if you find that, it's taking up a lot of space. You can kind of infinitely zoom in, so don't worry about how big it is, how small. And if you'd like to answer the question about, how would you define use uh, adoption, you can put that on the right side in the blue rectangle. And about 2 more minutes. Let's see. Yeah. So even if you have used other systems for since the Stone Age of technology, you can still perhaps give your definition of it and how you see that word from your experience.
And I'm going to be completely transparent with the fact that I do not work in product. So if there are any product specific questions, comments, anything like that, I'm more than happy to collect it and, filter it over to the right person outside of my team. But just to reiterate, the team that I work on focuses specifically on support for our products. So if you're having issues with adoption on a product, meaning, you're not able to get users to, follow a certain process you have, or, you don't have enough knowledge in a specific area, or you don't have help and support on, best practices around data governance or change management, and you're looking for resources to help with those things. Again, very adoption focused. And I know adoption is a loose term. So if we think more in terms of using the system in your day-to-day processes, right? How integrated and ingrained it is in those processes. If you guys are having trouble, issues, challenges, barriers around that, very open to feedback on that as well.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, and I think a lot of people might be pointing at specific things in the products.
Yes, it's a very hard line for me to even try to explain, and I've been on both sides of the fence, because product issues can definitely hinder adoption, right? If there are things that aren't working or they don't meet the need or whatever it is. So if you do have anything that's product specific, just try to provide some context around how that is, creating adoption challenges for you all in terms of using the product as part of your day-to-day.
Okay. So now that we are not starting the voting just yet, but I just want to explain, if we'd like to focus on something, we might find that everyone wants to focus on something that Crystal can't necessarily comment too much on, but we may be able to kind of put it in the context of something that she can address. If someone else, can help us figure out, where it fits in there, who might know more about the product aspect. So let's try as I said here, these voting dots are copy and pasteable, so there may not enough, but you can just click on one and then do like a Control C or Command C and paste it somewhere else. So we'll do like just 2 minutes to put 3 dots on 3 different stickies that you want Crystal to kind of look at and bring up and talk about and see if we can uh, spend more time. We're at 8:03 right now. Okay, 2 minutes. Here we go. So grab sticky dots. Sorry, not sticky dots. Voting dots. You can put them on all on one that you really, really want to talk about, or you can put them on 3 different ones. And this is going to be really loose. It's not like a political election. We're not gonna have every vote matters and argue about what we focus on. But I think it will just help Crystal focus because there's a lot of different items here. And as I said, we have limited time.
Very sad to see we're not doing anything well. Not going to take offense to it, but thanks, Gabby.
Okay. All right. So, Crystal, have you been keeping an eye on what has votes on it or not? You may want to look at the define adoption thing. That might be your baby over there, and nobody necessarily voted on that because maybe that they didn't come here thinking this is what I want to get out of it. But
Yeah. No, those are people's point of views. I'm okay with reading. I was kind of reading through them, and they're pretty much
Yeah.
aligned, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it looks like we have a lot for Salesforce Scheduler, but I'm not clear on, like, is it just like all sorts of not working well? Who can provide more context on the Salesforce Scheduler sticky
Can someone
note?
unmute and maybe who wrote that or who has strong feelings about that? And give us we're going to give how about 30 seconds to kind of give some clarity. 30 seconds to a minute. Yeah, here we go.
Okay, I wrote that one.
Thank you.
So last year I was working an internship and we had to do a demo with a client with Salesforce Scheduler, and we were actually having trouble getting it to work properly or the way that it should have, based on it was a little bit complicated. There was, for each appointment, we had to have 2 or 3 inspectors, and we couldn't get the schedules to work properly with 3 different people. So that's my
so
that take.
That hindered them from fully utilizing.
Right. I mean, as far as our demo goes, I mean, if I had to grade ourselves, I'd give ourselves a C, so it kind of hung up on that. So switching between Kanban view and I forget the other view where you manually set the schedule. It didn't work in unison very well.
Yep. And so, yeah, that's a not working well product thing. And so it
So what I'm hearing
causes problems.
is, my questions would be, what did y'all use to prepare for that implementation? So what kind of upskilling did you do on the product? What did you use to do that upskilling? And what was the process you worked through with the customer to kind of really understand their use cases, right? To then configure the scheduler for their needs, right? And was that done prior to suggesting using the scheduler, or was that done after suggesting to use the scheduler? So if we start from the top, what did y'all do to upskill on the scheduler before you built a demo?
I mean, I was on Trailhead, but I mean, we had worked on it for a few weeks prior to doing the demo, and there were times where we can get it working properly, and then times where it didn't work. So I guess, as you could say, like during crunch time when we were doing the demo, it didn't work as it should have. I mean, it wasn't like it didn't work at all. I mean, it did work, but it just didn't work as it should have. So it's kind of hard for me to go back on memory because it was about a year ago that I worked on that project. So, or a little over a year ago.
Got it. No worries at all. Thanks for the context. I know there's more dots on the scheduler. So outside of Brian's experience, where did the dots come from? Did anybody else have any experience with adoption issues around scheduler?
So this is Gary. We actually, with one of the client that I'm at presently, they've got a pretty, I don't know, maybe unique scheduling process, and it's just been a challenge overall. I know that for the manual scheduling, they did actually write a custom LWC on that, to accommodate that. Brian, I don't know if that's something that would have helped you out on your implementation. Sometimes doing it in an LWC would give you more visibility into those other, all the other people that need to be come together for that. But I don't necessarily know, your specific requirements. But in our case, the manual scheduling was okay, but they're trying to do a lot of the scheduling through a batch process, and it just does not work well at all. In its defense, LX scheduler was never designed to be a batch process, but it's we've been really battling with trying to come up with a mechanized scheduling in bulk for this stuff.
So my initial feedback, and again, I'm taking all of this back to the broader team. I'm really looking for the underlying themes, right? Kind of what Talia was getting at earlier, right? It's not just about the scheduler having some issues, right? It's really what transpired prior to the implementation or during the implementation that may have, right, fostered some of those issues or some of those challenges. So it sounds like maybe some additional guidance and support from knowledgeable, right, product or feature knowledgeable resources around best practices for gathering requirements and business value mappings, right? Business value mapping can really help mitigate some of the issues around going into an implementation without understanding that all of the customer's use cases don't fit. And then that's conjoined with understanding the product limitations, right? every product that Salesforce puts out there has some sort of limitations to it. Understanding those limitations can really help you with the business value mapping, right? To understand, if, to Gary's point, you have to do any customization, right, with Lightning Web Components or something like that, or code, right? We try to be clicks, not code, but sometimes that's just not the end result of the implementation. So those are just some things that I'm hearing, some underlying themes as folks are talking of ways we might be able to help support in those areas, right? Outside of, you know, passing on to the product team that some of these limitations are causing, right? Because there's two different things we're dealing with. We're dealing with product specific issues, right? That maybe we could do something about in the long run. We all know those take a little while to get through the Salesforce pipe. And then there's ways that we can help support and guide, right? Understanding that there are those challenges that you guys are going through. So all the feedback is great. That's what I'm hearing. If you guys feel like I'm not hearing correctly, feel free to let me know.
Yeah, and oh, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I was going to say, Crystal, I mean, what you're saying there, as far as, pick it, in line of picking the right tool, and are they sure that they basically are using the right tool here, working within the limitations, is spot on. And in our case, we kind of inherited this project from a different SI, and they basically were bottom line is that how they're using it should never have been used the way it is, but we've basically have had to live
Right,
with
you
it
inherit the
the way it is.
baggage. Sure.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot, right? And then you're kind of left with trying to figure out how to fix the adoption for the product because it doesn't really fit the need, but they've invested so much money that they just want to make it work. Totally get those scenarios. And they're not easy. So I totally get it.
Yeah, so I think it probably would have been helpful to maybe clarify more about what we're here for. Just like the adoption part of it seems like it's a bigger plan for the team and the implementation, and is probably not just any one of you here, and has to do with the client or during the requirements gathering, or was there a kind of user research? But I think that one of the questions, one of the questions here might be a good one to go to. What do you think, Crystal? This one about AI?
Yeah, we can definitely move on to the next. So real world use cases within your team. Have you seen adoption of AI in sales and service cloud workflows? So AI is such a huge topic right now. So we are all trying to catch our breath around the AI and data cloud, right? Kind of frenzy that's been going on over the last year or two. We're going to hear more about, AI and data cloud as we come over, through Dreamforce. Those are two huge topics. A session I'm actually doing with one of my counterparts is how to drive AI for service. So I get that these are huge topics. So I think the use cases for adoption of AI in sales and service cloud workflows. I don't know if I have any real world use cases in terms of some of these. The service AI features, we still have customers in beta for those. So we don't have a ton of customers fully using those features right now. So they're up and coming. We have some great beta scenarios, but not actual customer scenarios that I'm aware of. Product is probably different. But on the support side, what I can offer you guys is the tools, right, to be able to prepare for those implementations, because that's where we're seeing a lot of customers struggle right now. I think people really don't underscore the importance of data cleanliness and data integrity when you're working with AI and data cloud. It's super, super important to have, making sure that you go through. I'm actually pulling up my notes to stay on track because we've been talking about this so much lately, right? So we talked about skilling up, right? Making sure you really understand what those features are and how you can use them, business value mappings to your use cases. You have to prioritize, right? Because you can't tackle everything at once. So prioritizing which of those features you want to implement and which business processes need priority. Change management is huge, right? AI can do really great things, but it is totally new for most users to have all of these recommendations, right, coming at them, and how do they best use them to be more efficient, right? So change management for your users is super important to help with adoption, and really focusing on your data, right? Having to make sure your data is clean, you have good data integrity, and even small things like making sure you're using the descriptions for your custom fields, for your workflows, right? For your flows, for all of those customizations, using the help text, using the description fields, capturing that information, all of that's going to help improve your success when you're trying to adopt AI products. So those are just some super, super high level, that I could spit out in 5 minutes. But in terms of like tools and products that we've seen, used to be able to help with adoption success for AI. But I can promise you there's so much more coming on these topics as
definitely.
we get closer to Dreamforce. You guys are going to see a lot more on this. I don't want to give too much out ahead of time.
No, maybe we can trick you into saying too much. But anyway, there's Joe here. I've talked to him a bit about how he's using AI in his org. And I asked him if he would say something about that and how that's helped with his
That would be
users
awesome.
and
Yeah,
adoption.
like I said, I don't work on the product side, so a lot of this comes to me secondhand. So that would be amazing.
Yeah, sweet.
Joe, go ahead.
So basically, we've been using Copilot and Prompt Builder on our claims and triage teams. They use Service Cloud. And quite a few of the issues I've run into is basically not knowing how to ask them what they need, right? Because at the end of the day, they don't know how AI can help them, right? So there's some pretty standard use cases and some pretty complex ones too that I've been able to implement. A pretty cool one that I've done is something called current claim status, and what that does is it basically using Flow and Prompt Builder, we're essentially creating a timeline of tasks, and then for context, using the subject of those tasks to come up with the current status of that claim and kind of give some context as to what's happened up until now.
Nice. Now,
I've got more examples if you want, by the way.
Yeah, go ahead.
Speak about
Gabby's
for hours.
Gabby's saying something about, I don't see adoption of AI being an issue. I think anything that can streamline work and make things easier will come. But I hear you saying, I kind of hear this, like, we don't know the possibilities.
They don't know the
possibilities
around AI. Yeah, we have a lot of adoption issues with Data Cloud, right?
So like when we first got it, it took us about 3 months to get like solid ideas onto paper because it was a lot of iteration. And that kind of hindered us initially.
For sure. Yeah, that's why that business value mapping piece of preparation is so important, because if you can't, that's the most time consuming part, but that makes or breaks your success, especially with these types of products, right? Where the use cases are so important. Because like you said, Joe, users don't know how AI can help them. So you really have to understand the business uses right, for that and how they map back to the feature so that you can correlate. I know something new that we have out for service specifically is My Service Journey, right? So I don't know
I
if
was
any
about
of
to
you-
mention that, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you in service have used
For
My
my
Service
for
Journey, but
my
that's a great tool.
my end users, what I've done is I've sent that to them. I've basically told them, hey, like hop on there, give it a look through, and tell me what would benefit you the most.
Mhm.
And we'll see how that goes. But that's
Yeah,
exciting.
and there's some great, when you click into that, at least it can give them some descriptions, some links to learn more about it, right? Because the key to all of this, why I start with upskill, right, is because if you don't really understand the feature itself, it's really hard to figure out how it can help you, right? So once you really understand the feature, you understand the product and the limitations as well, right? Then you can make realistic use cases. But to Joe's point, it is the biggest hurdle the majority of our customers have to get over is mapping to their use cases to really understand how they can successfully implement and adopt those products. And AI is at the forefront of that just because it's so new, right? And there's so many things being thrown out there at once that people are just like AI overload right now. But those are all
If
really
the possibilities,
they're endless.
if the possibilities weren't endless before, now they're really, really endless.
100%. Yeah. So it's even harder, like especially as admins and devs, right? And architects, it's really hard to focus on what's meaningful, which is why I mentioned earlier, you have this huge bucket of stuff, right? Prioritizing those based on the business processes that map to them, and the business helps you prioritize, right? That's where your leadership comes in, right? That's the strategic part of all this, is working with those folks, right, to understand where the business is going and what you should be prioritizing off of that list, right? Because you just can't do everything at once.
Is there an AI tool that can tell you all the things that you should be doing? I looking at all the stuff that you are doing.
It's actually
My
a fair
service
point,
journey would
Talia.
be. Go ahead, Joe. Is that Joe?
I was going to say that's actually a fair point. Like, why aren't we using AI to help us with AI?
Yes.
It's a weird sort of
It
idea,
is, because
but
there's just so much, there's so much out there. There's so much good stuff you can use. It's really hard to know what to prioritize and what not to prioritize. Things like My Service Journey will help with that. There is something similar in the works for sales, but I don't unfortunately have a lot of details on timelines or anything for that. But it is coming because we understand, right, that there's just a lot. Now, from a support perspective, right, from our success plans, right, depending on whether you use standard, which is, more of our self-help resources like Trailhead, right, there's been more and more content pushed out there on how to really help prepare yourself, and your organization for these implementations. I would strongly suggest, I know that these things can be time consuming, a little tedious, but if you have access to those things in Trailhead, that's the best place to start. There are some modules that just go through 5 or 6 of them that really give you a good understanding of where to go. If you need a starting point, if you have Premier, you can use things like expert coaching to gain deeper, right, enablement into some of those features, to really, work with our product knowledgeable resources, right, on those, and learn. We also offer something called office hours, which is a really great way for our Premier customers to get on the phone with other Premier customers who are you're all struggling through the same things, right? So those calls can be really great to attend because it gives you a chance to, just collaborate with other people who are dealing with similar situations and see how they're tackling those things, right? And then for our signature customers, which is our more hands-on approach, usually our enterprise customers have those. I'm not sure if anybody on this call has even worked with signature, but those are more hands-on. So you can get a lot of technical health resources, right? Really help get a baseline for, your data integrity, security issues, those types of things that help drive, to Gabby's second point, right, around security and ethics, 100%. So making sure that those things are in place. So every level of our success plans offers some sort of support, but I definitely am hearing a lot of the same sentiment from folks on where they could use some additional support. So I
and
greatly appreciate the feedback.
I think I remember, I didn't take advantage of this, but at Dreamforce, you can go and talk to members of the team and ask questions directly, set up like appointment times with them and have a one-on-one. If you happen to be going, or maybe send someone from your team who can ask the questions. Yeah, it looks like we're almost at the end of the time. Amma, do you have anything else to point out, maybe about the next one in 2 weeks?
We can continue the next part in 30th. So Crystal, do you want to give a brief about what we are going to cover in the upcoming one?
Yeah, I wanted to be able to give 2 different sessions because I know some people just have, life happens and can't make a specific date. And I really wanted to try to give folks as much opportunity as I could to come and provide feedback. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this from the board and rejigger the questions on the slide to be a little more specific to some of these topics so that we can have maybe some more pointed discussions in those areas. And I really love this concept of giving people the freedom to do this, Talia. So if we could lean on this again next time, I think that would be super.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Talia, for this
Absolutely.
idea. This is such a good
Yeah, no.
idea. And thank you all for joining. And we are looking forward to see you all in the next session as well.
Yes, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate your time. Have a great night.
Thank you very much, all. See you next time.
Tell your friends to come on the 30th. Bye.
Bye.